What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was killed and Naoto escaped? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Naoto's POV. It had been a week since I settled in Celestine's castle. Today was my test drive day to prove to the other princesses that I was worthy of joining their ranks. Of course, anxiety was present in my veins but I had to do it. And I needed a game plan. As I began to think about it, an idea struck me. I could challenge them to a mock battle and teach them the errors of their fighting styles. If I succeeded in impressing them, it would give me two purposes fulfilled. The first would be to identify flaws in their style and defense, and that would help me see how they were formed. This would also indicate if their flawed formation was intentional or not. The second would be that their war veteran, Grave Levantine, would be here, and if I explained my reasoning and he objected, well, it would prove the rat theory and it would be in front of all of them. After all, Celestine said that she would have Beardsley and Grave investigated regardless, so if Grave was caught live here, then it would pretty much guarantee my stay in their ranks. If I succeed, then I would have to help them after their betrayal from what their ex-allies did, and if I'm wrong, well, I'll cross that grim bridge when I get there. As I got dressed and put on my armor plates on my shoulders and torso, I then grabbed both of my short swords in their sheaths and strapped them to my back. As I verified if I had everything in order, a knock was heard on the door to my room. "Excuse me, Sir Naoto. Lady Celestine asked for your presence during breakfast. She wants to talk about your plan before the others arrive while eating breakfast with you," a maid said from outside my door. I then answered her back. "Thank you. I'll get there immediately," I said as I opened my door, and the maid escorted me to the dining room. Surprisingly, it was an outside one in a splendid garden with multiple fountains and patches of roses around. There was even a small walk path to take a stroll after having eaten to slowly digest. Overall, it wasn't bad at all. As I approached the table, Celestine was there waiting for me as I sat in front of her at the table. She then smiled at me before asking how I slept. "Good morning, Naoto. I trust that you slept well since today is your induction day," she said as I nodded to her. Shen then smiled warmly before asking me if I had any questions about the induction when I'll meet the others later today. Is there a way for me to use this as a way to prove my earlier points last week, to expose the possible moles, and do it in a believable public manner? I asked her. She then put her index on her chin as she seemed to think about it before asking me another question. "Yes, but I assume that you have a plan of some sort?" she asked me as I nodded to her before explaining it. "My plan would consist of introducing myself first so they can question your authority. I would then tell them about Volt's recruitment offer only to possibly expose the theory of moles. They would get angry and I would use it as a practice mock battle with wooded weapons to have them fight me all at once. By defeating them and explaining their flaws in their battle style and flaws in their choice of armor. With this, since I heard that Grave Levantine would also be present, this would help question his decision to see if he is actually just a senile war veteran or it was calculated on his part. If it is calculated, then you have one your moles discovered live and his reputation smeared and one of our enemies done for," I explained to her as she nodded. It was an effective plan and she seemed to agree as she gave me the okay for it. She then asked me the last question before breakfast arrived. "I assumed that if it's in the town square it would be better, right?" she asked, to which I nodded while explaining further. "The more people can see his true nature, if my assumptions are correct, the better. It will spread to the other princess knights and they will have no choice but to believe this. Grave would also, if discovered, act rashly and violently in front of others, further proving to them that I wasn't lying. We need all of us united right now, and the less they think that there are no moles, the better when Volt comes around," I explained as breakfast arrived. It was pancakes with maple syrup and milk. We dig in and it lasted a good 30 minutes before when then walked away to the walkway to continue this conversation before my mock initiation. As we walked, Celestine began to ask me about myself. "Naoto, if you don't mind me asking, where do you come from? What did you do before coming to Eostia and becoming the Twin Lightning?" she asked with a warm smile on her face. I took a small breath as the painful memories of my past resurfaced before telling her how it happened. "Well, it happened like this," I said as I explained to her. Flashback 5 years ago. Elemental Nations. Valley of the End. Naoto's POV. Beginning of flashback. I woke after being cheap-shotted by Sasuke in his first stage of the curse mark. My vision was still groggy as I could hear the sound of chirping birds. As my eyes now could see properly, anger and sorrow took over me. Here was Sasuke after having the wings he had out of his back receded into him who had stabbed my little brother Naruto in the head with a chidori. I got back up as Sasuke back was in front of me as he began walking away to join Orochimaru. I then created lightning in my hand as I stabbed him in the back. He began coughing blood as his head slowly turned behind to see me with my hand through his torso. I had used the chidori to kill him the same way he did with my little brother. As I removed my hand from his insides and he fell to the ground, I asked a question, rage evident in my voice. So was it worth it, asshole? To kill your supposed best friend only for you to never carry your revenge? This is what your thirst to kill your brother did to others. Now I am making sure that your clan ends here. Every action has consequences, Sasuke, and you will see that, unlike my brother which tried to talk you out of this and paid with his life, that I don't share his love for forgiveness. Unlike him, I don't forgive as I make people accountable for their bullshit, and you sir will die slowly and painfully. I said as I ripped each of his Sharingan before crushing them. Never before did I think that I would enjoy proving the villagers right, but I guess I could make an exception with him. As he screamed, I put a flaming paper in his eye's socket and cauterized his wounds to make sure nobody could give him a transplant. I then weaved through hand signs and burned him to death, Naoto style. I then shot 3 fire styles, great fireball to the sky, and proceed to gather lightning chakra in my right hand. As the natural lightning began to rumble in the thunderclouds, I kicked him in the sky and used the natural lighting to completely disintegrate him. The impact was colossal as there was nothing left of him. As I began to approach my brother, I saw a familiar red chakra coming out of his corpse, and I also sense a bunch of people coming my way. There was no way in hell that I would have that fox sealed in me. I then weaved through hand signs and summoned a toad to teleport me to the land of waves. As he did, he then looked at me as he was about to summon Jiraiya to my location, and I couldn't have that, so I killed him. That pretty much cancelled my contract as I now had no summons. I got on a boat as a stowaway towards a land called Eostia. Flashback 5 years ago. Elemental Nation's End. Celestine had tears in her eyes as she seemed to want to cry for me. I then explained why I did my actions. I could have done better, but they don't respect demon containers back where I'm from, and since I wasn't in the right state of mind, the sealing would have failed as I would have freed it anyway. I needed to grieve, and this is why I wanted to be a knight, but I had to get an income to get my tools. This cost a lot and wasn't necessarily fun, but I persevered and got through it. Are you sure you want to know the rest of my story? I asked her after reciting the first part of my life before coming here. She nodded and asked me to continue. Please do. I need to know. I won't judge you for what you've done. You were a child back then, and I have a feeling you've learned since then. She said and explained her reasoning. This surprised me as I never had anyone this invested personally in my case. It brought me joy that maybe the possibility of my years of solitude was coming to an end. I then took another breath before telling her the rest of my tales until our meeting. Flashback. The birth of the twin lightnings. Beginning of flashback. Naoto's Pav. I entered a small river village called Kaithal. I began walking toward the inn, which was in the town square, only for me to see town guards around what seemed to be a corpse. As I made my way toward the scene, the guards stopped me before he explained the situation. Kid, you should stay at the inn right now. Then once you did, leave this town ASAP. There is a plague around here and it will kill you, and we don't know what caused it. He said as I began answering him. So what? I should just leave with no money and leave 100 people to die when I could do something about it maybe? I said to him as he then looked at me before explaining further. Look kid, I can use some gold to get away, but unless you can help us find the cause or kill the person poisoning the well, if that's even the case, you'll be only getting in the way, he said as I decided to run on a wall ninja style and then jumped on a nearby building before coming back to him to ask if I could help yet again. See? I'm not that worthless, I said, only for a mage to interrupt him before he could even talk back. The commander and I agree that the child could be useful. With skills like his, he could help us see this through. Now Gregory, go back to dissipating the crown. We'll take it from here. The voice said to reveal a priestess with a cross-shaped staff. She had brown hair and green eyes. Next to her was a bulky priest with gray hair and a beard in regal manner. He wore a cross with a massive spear on his back. The nun then introduced herself before introducing her superior officer. "Good day, my child. I'm Sister Carla and this is Cardinal Rosenberg. We saw you'd like to help, but before that please tell us. What do you know of demons?" she asked me as I winced. I clearly knew that they weren't pleasant to begin with, as I gave her my answer which satisfied her and her superior. Rosenberg began explaining things further. "Child, we think there is a demon in this town attacking and killing its people. Can your special energy contribute to helping us?" he asked as I seemed to think about it. Sure, I could sense things, but I had to focus really hard. I decided to explain what I had and everything about chakra. "I can use my chakra, but I doubt I'll get a clear shot at identifying it," I answered a bit dejectedly, only to have Rosenberg have a small glint in his eyes as he seemed to have an idea. "Chakra, you say? Child, do you come from these ninja lands?" he asked me as I nodded to him. He then smiled as he instructed Carla to prepare some ward as he seemed to have a plan. "Now child, mana is what we use to create magic spells and holy wards here in Eostia. I will teach you how to use the land and the spirit to see the supernatural. By the time these 2 days are over you will be a spirit sage," he said as he placed me into my mind to teach me the ways about it. These 2 days, oh god, these 2 fucking days felt like 2 years instead, but they paid off. I became a spirit sage. One with the flow of ethers, but my final training came to a halt when Sir Rosenberg had left my mind and I was ready. Black flames had engulfed most of the town, the building people and people were melting as what best be described as an invisible monster attacking the town. As I began to try and help Rosenberg, I felt a massive pain in the back of my head. My last thoughts before consciousness were of Carla placing me in a protected and safe location as she and Rosenberg departed to meet their end trying to kill this atrocity. This would be the last time I would ever see them again. It would be up to me to kill this demon that had killed so many that night. As I woke up I could still see the invisible damage, proving that the beast was still there. I began to use my spirit lightning as I had 2 chidori with 1 in each hand. I then stabbed the invisible beast straight in the heart with my hands still in there. I then dragged him upwards in a zigzagging manner until I removed my hand from its torso. I then used my remaining chidori to stab in the head, thus killing the beast once with a new attack. Twin lightning shivers. I screamed at the monstrosity as it died. I fell unconscious on the floor after that. I had killed the beast that had killed so many that day. Flashback. The birth of the twin lightnings. End of flashback. Celestine hugged me after I told everything about myself. Well, mostly everything, but I think that was enough for now. She and I then went to a public space as the bell was ringing. The time has come to initiate the plan I had told her earlier. On my way there, the other princess knights were now there. The first one was a blonde woman with blonde hair about back length. She had deep blue eyes and was dressed in a royal blue and white battle dress. She had a sword in its sheath strapped to her belt. Another thing that I noticed about her was that she had no armor. That was the biggest mistake she could do as a frontline fighter and would serve me well later during my plan. Next to her was a girl with long silky pink hair that reached below her waist. She also had blue eyes, but she was smaller, so I could only guess that she was her younger sister. She was wearing a white and pink dress, but I knew she wasn't the frontline fighter out of the 2 because she had staff, so she was the healer while her older sister was the frontline one. I could tolerate that as healers we were generally far away from battle when they healed, but I was worried about her since her older sister meant to shield her was well lacking right now. The third one was a lady dressed in a white and orange shrine maiden outfit. She had short black hair and purple eyes. She had definitively paper talismans on her crown, proving that she was an Easterner like myself. This had to be that Kagaya that Celestine mentioned when we first met. So another healer once again, and this time without frontline fighters to protect her in case magic fails. That couldn't be good, so I had to keep that in mind for later. The fourth one was what best be described as a small child. She had short curly blonde hair and orange eyes. She was dressed almost naked. She wore a green beret with 2 strings attached to it which had a fluffy cotton ball at each end of it. She had a white-clothed thigh cloth and wore a dark green cape above her shoulder to prevent anyone from seeing her body. Luckily, a gust of wind raised her cape from the back and showed me that she had a small deer tail, thus she wasn't a human child but a halfling instead. It made so much more sense now as to why she had this massive battle axe with her. There was still a problem with her fighting style, and that was her size. She was smaller than most, and as such anyone stronger and taller than her could keep her at bay, thus negating their strongest fighter, which if I had to guess was her. The fifth and last one that I had to meet was a short, pink-haired woman with amber-colored eyes. She wore an open orange blouse which was so open to give you a boob window. Good grief, I knew I criticized the blonde frontline fighter early, but this was just asking to get killed. She also wore dark blues jeans and leather boots. She had a sword strapped to her belt showing another sword fighter, but what caught my interest was her headband. It had a black dog which was crossed out as she quit them. Could she have been an ex-mercenary of that Volt's asshole troops? With these thoughts in mind, I kept advancing until I saw an old gray-haired man with a long gray beard. He has dressed a full knight armor, but he wore the same crest that Claudia wore on her armor. There was no doubt anymore. This was Grave Levantine, and the fact that he had full knight armor proved that they had the resources for it and he didn't want them in these armor. This meant that he was a mole, and the only thing I had left to completely expose him was to fight the other Princess Knight. If their fighting style were sorely lacking, well, it would pretty much settle that mole debate in my favor. As I arrived, Celestine began addressing them before I could introduce myself. Hello everyone, I would like to introduce you all to our new member. His name is Naoto Uzumaki Namikaze, and he will be joining our ranks as the Prince of the Princess Knights. He also brought a very alarming possibility to our ranks. Naoto, can you please take it away from her? Hello, as you heard, my name is Naoto Uzumaki Namikaze. The grim possibility is that there are moles in your rank. About a week ago, someone named Volp tried to recruit me into his rank. He wanted to turn this land into a nation of service, but I declined ASAP. What bugged me was his confidence in trying to recruit me. It was as if he had succeeded already, but he failed in doing so. That led me to the mole theory, as there is no way he could be this confident without being insane unless he had moles in your ranks. I understand that you might not believe me at all, but the best place to look would be human resources, since he can get money for free and shut people up with bribes. The second, and I kid you not that he has moles in, is the military. Without that, Volt's troops are worthless, since he can't get even one of his men inside your castle walls to win a siege. If you still doubt me, then bring your sword in a mock battle. I'll prove to everyone here my points in a teaching manner of a teacher his students. I explained while being forceful on the last part. My hook, line and sinker were planted, and I could feel this Grave Levantine clutching his chair where he sat. He didn't like it, but before he could do anything, the blonde knight that I saw earlier decided to challenge me first. She yelled as she unsheathed her sword and began charging at me, blade in hand. Like hell I will believe a newcomer like you. I, Alicia Artrucus, shall defeat to restore the honor you sullied of our veterans like Beardsley and Grave. She screamed as she tried to cut my neck with her sword, only to trip her via my feet and swinging rope punch her. Normally it would be over, as most people caught in this manner wouldn't get back up, but she was trying. Only for me to appear behind a deadlock, one of her arms behind her back as I put one of my short swords at her throat, but to make her give up. I then told her of her mistakes. You made multiple mistakes in this fight, Alicia. The first was having no actual armor. You have no armor protecting the vital organs in your torso. This flaw expands to having no armor on your elbows or kneecaps. If you get hit there, then it's over. And your sister, what's her name? I asked her as she grumbled something akin to Prim. I then continued my explanation. Well, if you fall because you don't have armor there, then Prim also falls with you. You can't protect her, and her spells need time to be used, so if she doesn't have you, then you both fall. The second is that you yelled while attacking in a pretty obvious manner. You tried to go with a finishing move early on, when a finisher, as the name implies, is meant to be the killing blow. That made it easy for me to counter you or anyone to do so. The third and final mistake is your hair, or to be more precise, you keep it unprotected. If you don't tie it in a safe battle manner or hide it with a helmet, then anybody can grab your hair and use that as a grapple to ensure their win over you. As a close-range fighter, you should know all of this, so may I ask? Who is in charge of training you all here? I asked after explaining my reasoning here, only for her to whisper it. I then decided to be more forceful. The townsfolk who were watching the exhibition match had to hear loud and clear. I then looked at Celestine, and she answered for Alicia, since her stubborn Tsunere persona wouldn't be willing to do so. Grave Levantine did. He trained Claudia and she trained everyone when he chose to retire. Celestine said as Grave was about to unsheath his weapon only for me to appear faster than he could react with my swords at him. One at his jugular and the other at his crotch. This was the moment of truth to finally confirm the rats. I then decided to ask him questions to see if he would lie in front of 1,000. It is hard to lie when your life is at stake and you are angry at someone who humiliated you like I just did for him. He wouldn't think rationally and that would ensure my victory. I mean, I was holding his life, so bonus points for being irrational, I guess. So why are you the only one with a big actual decent armor in a fight, but yet all the others ever since you retired have the worst possible armor? I asked him only to struggle more as I kept my blades steady. He then answered, "It was 50 years ago, the ore supplies aren't as good," he said as Celestine's expression changed to grim as Claudia began to tears in her eyes. That had to be an outright lie. Celestine's investigation showed that Beardsley and his son Klaus along with himself were only allowing weapons to be forged and repaired. The blacksmith had lost 50% of revenue from not repairing or forging armor. This had pretty much settled it as Celestine decided to show the result of her investigation. "Graves, you are found to be a traitor of the land of Eostia. You have conspired with Beardsley and your own son was a part of this. These documents show that you three prevented good armor from being made. You willingly sabotaged the training of others and by default of defense of Eostia. You are sentenced to death right now alongside Beardsley and your son Klaus." Celestine said only for Grave to yell at the other two to get away. I wasn't going to have any of it. I straight up beheaded him before creating 2 Chidori in my hands and stabbing them through their heads, thus ending 3 moles with one go. I released my hands from their corpses only for Kagaya to ask Lady Celestine a question. "Your Grace, I think it would be best to also kill Shimuhaza, as so far, 3 out of 4 people during this investigation's result were shown guilty and we cannot risk the last one." Warning Volt, Kagaya said to Celestine to nod. Celestine then looked at me before I was caught off guard by my next task. "Sir Naoto, your next mission is twofold. You must kill Shimuhaza but also get Olga Discordia this emblem of the peace treaty to make her come here. Dispose of any black dogs you can without attracting any unnecessary attention. Do you understand?" she asked as I bowed before departing the castle gate on a loaned horse. This had been quite a day, but it seemed I wasn't done yet as I heard another horse coming closer to me. As I turned my head, I saw Alicia and Prim on their horse following me. This two-way stealth mission had just gotten 2 times harder. Naoto's pav. I was on my horse when I heard other horses galloping towards me. It was Alicia and Prim. How, when, what, and why were they even here? As I stopped my horse to wait for them, I noticed something different about them. Alicia had tied her hair in a shorter manner, but she was now wearing armor. Did she take my advice and battle with her this seriously? If she did, then she decided to improve quite ASAP after everything was shown. I can only imagine being made a fool by the old man you used to trust only for his dirty fantasies to guide you in your planned downfall. At the very least, she decided to listen to the ugly truth rather than the beautiful lie, and that would be immensely helpful later down the line. Prim had tied her hair in a short ponytail and also decided to wear some very light armor just in case. They didn't take long to catch up as they stopped their horses next to mine before Alicia began the conversation. "Sir Naoto, I would like to apologize for my earlier actions today. You showed us the flaw and traitor in our midst, and I can't in good conscience allow you to do this alone. Prim also wanted to spend time with you, and myself included," Alicia said, with the latter being nothing more than a whisper which I heard. This brought a smile to my face as Prim decided to add her 5 gold pieces to this conversation. "Yes, Mr. Naoto. Although it's the first time I saw Big Sister this enamored with a young man our age before," Prim said, giggling only for Alicia's face to turn a bright shade of red. I decided to tease her and winked at her before telling them to come along as I know we didn't time to lose. The priority of this mission had changed slightly now. While I should have started with killing Shimuhaza the bug breed, now it changed to recruiting Olga Discordia and her aide to our side before resuming the manhunt for Shimuhaza. If we didn't do this well, Volt would have a stable resource income by taking over Olga's castle, and thus killing Beardsley would only have prevented information given to them. We had the 3 from earlier today killed to prevent spies from relaying Volt information and destroying their stable income. I then explained this to Alicia and Prim before we fully departed toward the Dark Elves' nation. "We have a slight change of plan, girls. We're going to the Dark Elves first to prevent Volt from having resources, otherwise we killed Grave, Beardsley, and Klaus earlier for almost nothing. Sure, by doing so we prevented Volt from getting information on us from his spies, but it also prevented him from getting easy shelter and food. Do you have any questions? Please keep in mind that it is primarily a stealth and diplomacy mission first, so killing troops that will expose that we know their plan is forbidden. I said as they nodded. Alicia then asked me a question. Naoto, do you mind if I take the lead for guidance? The kingdom that I rule is the closest to the Dark Elves, so I can guide us three there at the best time possible. Alicia asked as I nodded, giving her the full go. She smirked as it seemed that we might get to the borders at the very least before nightfall. This was great as we only have 4 days to succeed in recruiting them and going back to Celestine's castle before Volt arrived. So the faster we got there the better. It took 6 hours before we arrived at the border and stopped our horses. As the girls and I began making camp and making a tent. With all of this done, I decided to use some papers that I crafted to prevent anyone from approaching or noticing our camps. These were meant to put anyone, including the wildlife, into an illusion that made them go away and not remember this place. With the camp set, I went into my tent to sleep and began closing my eyes. Or so I tried, as Alicia had snuck in and decided to snuggle. I began to open my eyes and saw a blushing Alicia do so many kisses as she seemed to be dozing off. Well, this was awkward. I could tell her that I'm awake or let her just do that. I mean, she had been through enough today, so she didn't need me poking fun at her yet again. I decided to just tell and explain that I wasn't offended, but we still needed to talk about that. If this doesn't get solved, it would only hinder everyone later down the line. So I began talking to her. Alicia, why are you kissing me non-stop? I asked as she stopped and was an even redder shade of red than ever before. I de-iced to explain that I wasn't mad. If she screamed, it would do it all, since Prim will think we're under attack when it was really her sister who acted like this. Look, I'm not mad, but if you just wanted to snuggle you could have asked. I told her, only for her to nod shyly as she then asked this time. Can we, please, snuggle? I feel safe with you, Naoto. She asked as kept blushing, and I nodded to her. She slowly began to sleep with her head on my torso, and we fell asleep for the night. The next morning I would have woken up a bit earlier to prepare, but my ears were ringing. Prim opened the tent and saw that, and Alicia saw this and ran her tent embarrassed. I definitely need to resolve this. She was in love, she needed to let it out before it could cause more awkwardness. We then got on our horses as Alicia took the lead once again, as we were now in the Dark Elves' territory. We got here fast, but what we saw was a Dark Elf, but she had way fewer pointy ears. She had tanned-colored skin with beautiful ruby-colored eyes. She wore a black female thief outfit with a black cape on her back. She had long blonder hair that she mostly kept in a side ponytail or the left side of her face. Now that I looked at her more closely, this brought a very specific memory back to mind. Prim and Alicia noticed my expression, but Prim voiced her thought first, being the bubbly optimist that she is. Naoto, do you know her? Prim asked me as I slowly nodded and began explaining to them who I think it was. I think I know her. I saw her at a slave camp 5 years ago. I said as I began explaining to them where I knew her from. Flashback 5 years ago. Slave camp Mandeville. Beginning of flashback. Naoto's POV. I was walking in the forest when I hear a lot of screams. They were people screaming in what seemed to be a pain. I ran as fast as I could though where these screams were coming from and hid in a tree. What I saw shocked me. This looked like a slave barn. What seemed to be the leader of that place? He was a weak, frail old man with gray hair and tanned skin with a red leather trench coat. He was walking with a cane as his men seemed to be cleaning the corpses of multiple women. In a cage was a young girl about my age with tanned skin and ruby eyes with a medium-length ponytail on the left side of her face. She was wearing rags and was screaming at the old. The insult was pretty much justified, but one word caught my attention. She had called him father. So this old guy had her mother and sister killed, but why? This didn't make any sense as it was counterproductive for a slave seller, but I soon got my answer. The old man began to speak. My dear daughter, your mother and sister's death is your fault. If you hadn't tried to escape, I wouldn't have killed them to discipline you. You are my slaves, thus I want absolute obedience from you. He said the last part while screaming as he slapped her hard. This guy made me want to vomit. As he went back into the chariot, his guards decided to have some fun with him. Oh fuck no. I then jumped with my two short swords in hand and decapitated the guards. As I landed and made some noise, the old man decided to come out again, only to start to piss himself. His guards were dead courtesy of me, and I began weaving through hand signs as the sound of thousands of birds could be heard as lightning began to form in balded shape in the palm of my hand. He tried to run away, only for me to stab him to death multiple times with my chidori, as I was enraged at this asshole's actions. I was an orphan who was forced to raise my now deceased little brother Naruto, so the fact that this asshole was her father made me feel rage as I have never felt before. I then walked towards her cell and broke the bars and freed her. The girl looked at me as if she was really allowed to leave, and I told her, "You can leave. Your life of suffering is over. Here is some gold for you and some spare clothes that I have. The Dark Elves' kingdom is that. I can't escort you as I have to clean this up to make sure they can't find you ever again. Now go," I told her after having given her the gold and clothing. I pointed in a direction and told her to go and never look back this way. She ran as fast as she could with tears of happiness this time in the corner of her eyes. Flashback 5 years ago. Slave Camp Mandeville. End of flashback. They nodded as they now understood why I was looking at her. She fit the description of what I saw. Alicia was still unsure, but Prim decided to show her optimism once again. She surprisingly had a fair point as she explained herself. "Naoto, you should introduce yourself. If it is her, then it makes our job a lot easier. After all, you should jog her memory if she still doesn't believe you," Prim said as I nodded with Alicia while still weary. I then began walking towards the dark elf as I raised my hands in the air before talking to her. "Hey, you look familiar. Did I see you 5 years ago in that forest slave camp? Sorry if I offended you, but you looked like that girl that I saved from this abusive father, but older," I said, and not 1 second after I said that she rushed me and Alicia began unsheathing her sword, only to freeze the next second. This dark elf was the one I had saved, as she cupped my face with her hand while tears began to form in her eyes. She began thanking me for these 5 years ago, and I nodded, but I had to warn her about Volt's disgusting plan. I then gently removed her hand from my face. "Listen, I am happy that you are safe, but I came with the other two, Princess Nithe, Alicia, and Prim. We are here on Celestine's order to offer amnesty." Celestine admitted to her fault as this war dragged on. Something more evil is lurking in the shadows. Volt, the leader of the Black Dogs, is coming, and he has recruited your ex-captor. Apparently, John Mandeville was a part of his crew until that day 5 years. He plans of turning all the women of Eostia into nothing but slaves. I need an audience with the Dark Elf Queen to stop this madness. I told her as she understood, but wasn't happy about the Princess Knights. Not that I could blame her, as both sides were at war for a while. I knew I needed something else to have her help us further. I also killed some of Volt's rats in their ranks. We have to hurry. Volt will be here in 2 days, and if we don't get you to join us, your kingdom will fall, I explained, and she then answered me. "I'll take your word, and only because of what you did 5 years ago, and ask Her Majesty to grant you an audience. I cannot guarantee, but the fact that you came back even though we're at war with them to save us speaks volumes of your action. And Chloe is my name. The name of the girl you saved 5 years ago," she said as guided us toward the throne room. She went inside as we waited for around 5 minutes. To say we were all worried was an understatement, but eventually, Chloe came back and told us to enter the throne room. On her chair was Olga Discordia, the Dark Elf Queen. She had long soft black hair that reached below her waist with yellow eyes. She had dark skin worthy of an ebony goddess. She was dressed in a purple yet revealing mage outfit. She wore a silver tiara on her head and a regal black cape on her back. She then looked at Chole before looking at me. She then smiled before introducing herself before I could give her Celestine's message. "I have from Chole that you are the one who saved her 5 years ago. I must thank you, as I doubted you humans had any mercy or compassion left in you since that war started. I also heard that Celestine admitted to her fault and sent you to give me a message?" She asked me as I nodded and introduced myself before giving her the message that Celestine told me to give her. "Yes, Your Majesty. I am Sir Naoto Uzumaki Namikaze, the Prince of the Princess Knights. Lady Celestine wants to end the war as she admitted to her fault. She told me to give you this and to you only to further prove how serious she is. Volt and his men are on their way here. If you don't join, they will try to recruit these large creatures you called ogres to their side, and you will be subjected to their horrible plan. They are only 2 days away as we speak. I told her while giving her a stuffed teddy bear which was worn and ripped in half. Olga's eyes widened as she remembered that object. Her eyes softened as she gave her answer. Very well. We'll come with you, but only because Chloe spoke so highly of you, Naoto. I can teleport us there. It will be done ASAP. She said only for me to grab my sword and deflect an axe being thrown at Olga, while Alicia drew her sword and moved Prim and herself toward Olga. As we were ready for a battle, two figures emerged from the mass of ogres. They were very fat and large humanoid pigs with pink skin dressed in a tuxedo. As they began to walk towards us, the older of the two began to talk. We are afraid we can't let you go. Master Volt wants all of your girls as slaves and he will get it. He is only 2 days away and we will not fail him. The porker said as I rushed at him with a chidori in hand and stabbed him in the gut. He screamed in pain and tossed me away, only for me ninja to walk on the ceiling and toss a flash bomb at these swine. They got blinded at this time. I needed way more power to kill these shielded swine. I had to resort to this move again. I haven't used the Rasengan in 5 years. I opened my palm and a spiraling blue sphere began to form in it. I then clasped my other hand on top of it and began compressing it to the point of being even smaller than a marble. I rushed at them as the unwounded pig began protecting the wounded one. His shield raised and steady to block my attack, but I kept pushing my Rasengan on the shield. The sound of metal was getting torn and the pierce was reverberating through the room until cracks began to form in his shield. A massive cracking noise was as his shield broke. It was followed by a loud squishing sound as my attack completely destroyed his insides and went through his brother behind him. My arm felt as it had gone limp from using it, but these two wraiths were dead now. A magic circle began to glow around each of us as Olga warped us back to Celestine's castle gates. I felt my consciousness drift away as I was dragged to the infirmary. Last night had been quite a night. I lost my virginity to Chole and got myself a girlfriend, but it was bound to be the talk of the town soon. Alicia would be angry that I got laid and had a girlfriend, as she had asked for snuggles before we arrived at the Dark Elves' kingdom, or what was known as that. After all, they had joined us and left the kingdom to die, since there were only 2 Dark Elves left and they didn't want Volt to have their resources. As I woke up with Chole in my arms. She was wide awake already as she smiled warmly at me. She then gave me a kiss on the cheeks before greeting me. Good morning, honey. Did you enjoy our love-making night? I sure did, since I slept like a log, she said as I nodded back at her. This had been one hell of a night, but it was a good one. I then decided to get up and make breakfast. She slowly got dressed as I did. We began our eggs with bacon and buttered toast. It really was a weird but pleasant feeling. Was this what love felt like? It certainly was different than sibling love. As we finished eating, Chole decided to do the dishes and I got dressed as I hadn't done so earlier when we woke up. We knew we had to depart to meet the other princess knights. As we exited my house, I saw that I had mail and decided to read. This wasn't pleasant at all. There was a single sentence that could be interpreted as a threat if not followed by the person it was addressed to. "Hands off my man, elf slut," was written in the letter. This was clearly Alicia's doing. There was no other way, as the insult was aimed at elves. There it had to be a human, since Ruru was a halfling and she was under Lady Celestine's orders, so that settled it. That only meant Alicia, as Claudia was still grieving over her false marriage. Her husband was in on it and she had spent her entire life in the Levantine family only for it to break apart, so it settled it. I needed to avoid hostilities now, and I would bring the letter up to Celestine or Claudia. Celestine would be better, since it would cause a meeting between all of us. As we went to the castle, I asked for an audience with Lady Celestine as the guards led me through. Celestine was on her throne when she saw me. She waved before asking me what was I doing there. "Oh, hello, Naoto. Sorry if I didn't see you there. Is there something wrong?" she asked as I nodded before explaining things to her. I then handed her the letter in my mailbox and further elaborated. Yesterday evening, Chloe thanked me, and today I found the letter with what is written on it in my mailbox. I think Alicia wrote it for Chloe. We need to have a meeting since this is getting out of hand. I am only saving lives because it's the right thing to do, but I will not tolerate threats and animosity between us all. Is there a solution to this? I saved girls and now they're crushing on me? I explained to her before she turned an atomic shade of red before trying to answer my question. Well, polygamy isn't illegal. Celestine stammered as I spat some incoherent thoughts as my arms fell limp to their sides while my face was showing how flabbergasted I was at the idea of this. She was really suggesting a harem? I took some deep breaths to calm my blushing face as I asked her some questions. How is doing a harem make me any different than Volt? Isn't what we're fighting against just that very principle? I asked her, but before she could answer, Claudia, who had been in the room earlier but I hadn't noticed because of my panic, added her 2 gold pieces. Not really, as if you go with her Grace's plan, you'd be doing it differently. For one, your polygamy would be consensual, so unlike Volt who wouldn't care you would, so you are not in the wrong there. Second, we are fighting against him to prevent him from turning all the women of Eostia into slaves, so the fact that you are not ignoring their consent is the defining factor here, Sir Naoto. Now, what is that I heard about a threat in the mail? Claudia said as she took the letter from Celestine's hands as she then read it. Her eyes narrowed as she confirmed Alicia's handwriting. She then looked at Celestine before explaining her plan. Your Grace, we don't need to involve everyone. I'll get Alicia and Chloe here so we can straighten things between them, as this discord is unacceptable. Claudia said as I was forced to wait here as Chloe and Alicia were brought here. Claudia then looked at Alicia before slamming the letter in front of her and asking her what she was thinking about doing so to our newly inducted allies. Alicia, what are you thinking about sending a threat letter? Do you want us to lose our newly acquired allies? Claudia asked after showing her the letter. Alicia then took the letter but began to look angry at the accusation. She was about to answer but Chloe interrupted her. It isn't, Alicia. Look more closely, there is a small pink hair attached to the back of the letter. Chloe said as Claudia took a look at the back only to confirm what Chole had said. All of them were stunned, including me. Prim, the bubbly optimist little princess, had done this? This was just. I didn't even have words to describe this as everyone else was in the same situation as I was. This was embarrassing, but Claudia left to bring Prim into the room. Once Prim was inside the throne room, tears began to form in her eyes. She was caught and began to cry as she explained her reasoning. I am sorry. I saw Big Sis. So happy that I felt so happy. I felt butterflies in my stomach when she had some for Naoto. I couldn't hold it anymore. If Bis Sis was happy even though she loved the man I started to love, then I would protect her and Naoto's happiness, from anyone. She cried, explaining things to everyone. Alicia hugged Prim and even Chloe hugged little Prim. This shocked everyone, but I slapped my forehead. The sound of my palm brought them out of this scene. I should have seen it coming. The signs were there. I was the one who proved they had rats, and she was being blunt. They joined me 4 days ago when we recruited the Dark Elves. Yes, Mr. Naoto. Although it's the first time I saw Big Sister this enamored with a young man our age before. Were Prim's words. They began echoing in my mind as I then comforted them. This was my fault for being so dense about it. My actions without warning had caused harm and psychological harm to them. I then talked to them in a general sense. No, it's my fault. The signs of how you felt were there, Prim. You said as such when we tried to recruit Chloe and Olga. These were your words. Yes, Mr. Naoto. Although it's the first time I saw Big Sister this enamored with a young man our age before. These were your words, and I simply looked at them at face value because of our mission. It is my fault, so I apologize, Prim, and you too, Alika. I didn't expect to hurt you, and for that, I'm deeply sorry. I said. Chloe went and whispered something in my ear. I blushed before asking her if she was sure. Are you sure you don't really mind, Chloe? I know Celestine earlier warned that it wasn't illegal, but the question is, are you really okay with this? I asked her as she nodded before slowly explaining her plan. If I wasn't, I wouldn't have proposed it to you, honey. Now I'll talk with them as you go do your daily training to review where Shimuhaza could be with Kagaya. Looks like the family might be getting bigger soon. She said as I was basically kicked out of this meeting and as she would convince a solution. I then decided to make my way toward Kaguya's place to find out about Shimuhaza's possible locations. As I entered her shrine, Kagaya had just finished her meditation when she noticed me. She then talked to me as she bowed politely to me. Ah, hello Naoto-san. I assume you came to get Shamazaha's possible whereabouts? She said as I nodded. Of course, leave it to the Kuadere. That looks cold on the outside, but they have a heart of gold on the inside. She told me to sit next to her on the tatami, which I did. A shrine maiden had given us 2 cups of oolong tea to drink while we did so. I then asked her. Yes, Celestine sent me after my meeting with her to do so. I doubt that I'll him that soon as Alicia and Prim. Well, you know. I trailed off as she nodded before she decided to do something else. She then began to ask about me since I was an Easterner like her. So Naoto-san, if you don't mind me asking, how was your life back in your birthplace? She asked with a warm smile and intrigue gracing her beautiful face. She was clearly interested in me, so I gladly obliged. I was raised and born in a village called Konoha. I was the oldest of 2 twins. I was a ninja of that place of Konoha, but I quit that place when things go awry. I then made it here 5 years ago. The land I used to live in was nothing but ninja with the energy we called chakra. The land had 5 great nations. The nation of fire was where Konoha was located. The others were Suna, the location of wind in a desert, Kumo, the location of lightning, Iwa, the location of earth, and lastly Mizu, the location of water. These locations were named after a chakra element of affinity, as we called them back there. The chakra of a ninja can change elements depending on how said ninja molds it. We have a special blend of trees that when cut to make paper, these papers can absorb a ninja chakra, thus showing their natural element of choice. If a person's element is fire, the paper will ignite and burn to ash. If it's water, it will become damp and soggy. If it's wind, the paper will be sliced in half and fly away in the wind. If it's earth, the paper will slowly turn to dirt and crumble away. And finally, if it's lightning, the paper will wrinkle. I explained to her and she nodded happily as she took notes. I didn't even notice that right now until she then asked me some more questions. Let me guess, yours wrinkled? She asked while giggling as I nodded. She giggled some more before asking her next question. It's fun talking with you, Naoto-san, but you seemed bothered still? She asked me. Damn, was it that obvious? Was I that easy to read? I then looked at her and nodded. I asked Kagaya how could she know that at all. She giggled again before answering my question. Well, call a fellow Easterner intuition, she said as I laughed and teased her back. Don't you mean a woman's intuition? I asked as she stuck her tongue at me before answering me. Could be both if you wanted to, she said as she smiled warmly at me before giving me a wink. I nodded while blushing and explained what happened with Prim, Alicia, and Chloe. I could only hope that she wouldn't judge me for that. Chloe gave me her thanks last evening in a manner that made Prim send a threat letter to her at my house. Celestine, Claudia, and Alicia have fixed this, but Celestine suggested polygamy if could even believe it. She then sent me here about Shimuha's location, but since you had no idea about his, well, we ended up talking about our shared culture, I said as she nodded before catching me off guard with another question before I left to go back home. Do you think that once the stuff with Prem and Alicia is over you could take me on a date? She asked me as I stopped mid-track out of the doorway. I had no escape now. This would into polygamy, but was it a bad thing? Celestine had pretty much confirmed that if everyone was willing then it was all right. I needed to protect them from Volt, and as such, I had made my decision. I slowly turned my head toward her before leaving and I gave a warm smile as I answered her. Of course, Kagaya-chan, I will take you out once this matter is solved, I said. She nodded warmly while blushing as I left her house to go back home. As I was making my way there, Chloe intercepted me. She then told me there had been a small change of plans as she explained it. Good morning, Sir Naoto. Some folks entered the castle town and we felt an aura similar to you on them. You already showed us how to detect these in training. It's making the recruits go crazy and the rest of us are trying to contain it, but she trailed off after explaining her stuff only for me to cut her off and give her orders. Go warn Celestine to assemble all 10 of us. I'll track them and they will know where I am with my swords, I said as I ran towards their last known location. Once there, what I saw made me angry, confused, and betrayed. In front of my house were 4 people and 3 of them I recognize, and one, in particular, I hated with every fiber of my being. The first was a gray-haired man with gravity-defying hair. He wore a mask that covered all of his face except for one eye. His headband was obstructing one of his eyes. He wore a green Jonin jacket and a black ninja uniform underneath it. It was my old sensei, Kakashi Hitaki, otherwise known as Sharingan Kakashi of 1000 Jutsu. The second one was a spiky white-haired man in a green and red haori with wooden sandals. He wore a headband with the word, Myoboku, on it. Under his eyes were 2 red lines which were made of red paint. He seemed off as the white in his eyes was now black and his pupils were red instead of black. This was my second sensei, Jiraiya of the three great Sannin. The third one I absolutely despised. He had blonde spiky hair with two bangs on each side of his head. He wore a Konoha headband and a Jonin vest. Underneath that was a dark blue shirt and black ninja pants. On his shoulder was a white cape with red flames at the bottom of it, but in the middle of said cape was the number 4. This was the man that destroyed my life and would probably have made me the next victim of having a fox demon sealed in my guts. This was Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage. His eyes were the same as Jiraiya's. What was up with that bullshit? The next one was a woman with deep and long below-waist red hair. She was dressed in a green dress with a yellow undershirt underneath said dress. She also had the same eyes as Jiraiya and that accursed 4th Hokage. What the actual fuck was going on? With these 4 in front of my house, it was clear that I couldn't hide anymore. My 5 years of freedom, including my new life, would come to an end. No, not on my watch, and with possibly 3 of my girlfriends pregnant. I would die before they could even try to force me back. I took a deep breath and I then yelled at them with insults. Yo, you 4 shinobi, don't you have anything better to do than chase fucking ghosts and destroy lives with your jinchuriki making? I yelled at them, which caused them to turn at me. Kakashi's eyes narrowed as he recognized me as the others did. They probably were brief that I betrayed Konoha to avoid having a demon shoved in my gut and is a powerful deterrent. It took a couple of minutes of silent staring at each other before Jiraiya began walking towards me, asking his question. Kiddo, you're truly alive? The broker here said so and we thought you died. The toad, he trailed off before I answered him coldly. This wasn't time for pleasantries. I now knew the order of who trained who, and I felt even more disgusted at myself for not having seen it coming. Jiraiya trained the 4th Hokage, who then trained Kakashi, who trained me. They clearly haven't expected me to be hostile towards them, but I didn't care or gave a fuck. I never died Gamateme. I used a toad to reverse summon me to wave after I killed Sasuke when he killed Naruto. I then killed the toad and left the elemental countries to never see anyone from there ever again. It was calculated when Sasuke killed my younger brother. I said coldly to him as he now narrowed his eyes. Even the 4th did so as Kakashi stopped reading his porn book, as the woman was now having a sad frown. Why was she looking at me like she wanted to chide me like a kid? I didn't have a mother and certainly don't need one when I'm about to be a father. Kakashi was about to speak when the 4th cut him off as he began talking to me. You know, Naoto, when I sealed the fox in your brother, I was happy to have protected you both from harm. Now I find out that you willingly betrayed Konoha and many people died years later in the elemental countries when a 4th ninja war happened. I had hoped that you would have protected them after that, but it seemed you ran away instead. It was so bad that all the ninja nations sided with each other and revived many cages, including Lord 1st, 2nd and 3rd alongside myself and my wife. I gotta say that as your father, I am disappointed that you ran away to avoid your responsibilities. I am pretty sure your mother next to me is also feeling like myself right now. He said. My mind froze as he said the word father. No, this couldn't be true, could it? The asshole that destroyed my life and Naruto's was our own father. I began to feel anger, rage surface and boil through my veins. As I was slowly leaking chakra with killer intent, a voice was heard in my head. I saw an invisible woman. She had below-waist pink-colored hair and yellow eyes. She was dressed sluttishly as a succubus in a very revealing black outfit. She had bat wings and a succubus tail. On her head were 2 horns that seemed to generate electricity like a typhoon. That was the same woman that tried to seduce me when Volt failed to recruit me. I could guess, as this was how Volt never failed until he met me. She seemed amused, as if I was nothing but a fun ride of entertainment. She then began talking to me telepathically. Ah, seems you remember me. I am Randamira, and yes, I was with Volt's crew, but I noticed that you seemed to be exhibiting lots and lots of lust energy. So I thought I'd invest in a better horse to bet on than Volt. After all, lust energy is made from any form of, but it is way, and I mean way more potent when love is actually involved. So here you go, accept this blessing of mine and show your newfound demonic powers. She said as she injected me with invisible energy. My body fell to the floor as I struggled. I could see that blasted 4th Hokage walking toward me while scolding me. Naoto, my son, it seems your time in this land has come to end. It is time to go back to Konoha. The Otsutsuki are coming and the Sage of Six Paths gave us these powers to bind you and drag you back. He said as he was about to weave hand signs as he was stopped by multiple voices. Celestine, Claudia, Olga, Chloe, Alicia, Prim, Kagaya, Ruru, and Maya were all there. Celestine then made her orders known as the guard began advancing to stop them. I am afraid that we can't let you folks do that. Your lives end here. Naoto is part of the Holy Alliance and is of a now very high ranking in Eostia. Since you've done this publicly, you've just declared war. I can also think of 3 very angry ladies not wanting the father of their children getting kidnapped and possibly soon to be more. Celestine said as Minato stopped himself as even that lady stopped herself. Chloe then took a step forward and punched the 4th Hokage in the face only for him to anticipate her. He then punched her unconscious. My body felt limp and my heart began to race. The strange power that I injected earlier began to surface as I yelled and my body transformed into a rage to protect what matters to me. How dare you? That's my Chloe! I screamed as black marks began to spread all over my body. My eyes turned violet with multiple diamonds in a circle position around my newly colored irises. My skin began to grow scales as it darkened a bit. From my back emerged 2 lizard-like wings and a tail with black inner skin as silver scales kept growing on my skin everywhere. My body retained its human appearance as I got slightly taller and more muscular. My hair lengthened a bit and became wilder and spikier. As the dark lightning began to come off my wrist, I began walking toward the Konoha ninjas and gave Celestine the order. I could barely control myself right now. Celestine, grab Chloe and everyone and retreat inside the castle walls. I'll get them out of this land, permanently myself. I said as she obliged with a teleportation spell, which I then unleashed all my newly acquired demonic and draconic fury on them by warping them away from the castle town into the wastelands far away with myself as I breathed a massive lightning spell at Kakashi. He removed his headband as his Sharingan changed form to try to redirect my attack, but it was in vain, or so I thought. That blasted 4th Hokage had saved him via his Hiraishin, but not for long. I then created 2 black lightning Magatama and shot them at him, which he dodged, but I actually counted on that. These Magatamas were not aimed at him but at the wasteland itself. These Magatamas were meant to negate heavy cost techniques, and since he likes to teleport spam, well, he was in for a nasty surprise next time, saved someone else's life. He then began talking to me. So you would kill us? Is Konoha not your home at all anymore? Don't you feel anything for the people you grew up with? Is this how you repay your mother and my sacrifice 19 years ago? Minato said as I grunted at him as I deflected his massive amount of tri-pronged kunais. I then answered him as I kicked away Jiraiya and Kakashi, all the while dodging some gold-colored chains from what I understood was now my mother. Yes, I would, especially if you threatened my newfound family. Konoha was never my home. I only stayed because of Naruto, and when he died I had no will to stay there anymore, so not really. What do you want me to say? That I'm like, sorry to have looked for my own hide when you kept doing the same thing you did as I criticized you all about. As for repaying you both, how can I even repay people I didn't even know were my parents until 5 fucking minutes ago? Tell me how? I screamed at him, my Dragon Rasengan connected into his gut. He had lost his limbs, but something was off. He was regenerating anymore. His body kept breaking down until the 4th Hokage was no more. As I then looked around, I saw the same with Jiraiya's body but a now headless Kakashi. How? Did my attack cause this much fucking damage? I kept looking until the voice of my mother was heard. I then looked at her as she spoke. Her appearance had changed. She was now covered in a yellow flame like chakra with black outlines on her body. She had 9 black orbs flowing behind her back and her hair had 2 bangs upwards that seemed to be horns. She then began talking about this after powering down. Naoto, my child, I now understand. Just tell me something. Do you truly love them? Is this your true happiness? Are you really okay without helping Konoha? She asked as I nodded to her. I love them with all my heart and I would protect them with my life. Nothing would ever harm them. I explained my feelings to her. It seemed that my mother understood me better than all Konoha combined. Could a mother really understand her future child when it was still in her womb? Yes, I would die for them. It is the first time that I felt that way. It's funny how things turn around. Back when I was a kid I never believed in these stomach butterflies, but I now know better than to doubt that any further. Yes, Konoha ain't my home. I don't hate them, but this cause of action just brought war to their mother, so I have no choice now. If they had just let me be, this war could have been avoided. I said to her as she nodded before slowly approaching me. She then cupped her hands on my face before I felt her transferring her chakra. No, it was more than that, as I felt new knowledge enter my brain and newfound chakra also. I could only ever use lightning, but I had an affinity for all 5 elements and more. What the hell was yin and yang's release? As she was done, her body crumbled away and told me her last words. Naoto, you were born as my son, and I thank you for least calling me mother before I died again. No matter what face you wear, you will always be my son. Now go back as yourself to your family, she said as she was finally completely dissipated forever. My body began to change back to my human form, and I could see a black tattoo on the back of my hand. I then made my way back home, where all of them greeted me once again before we decided to end the day early. Before I even entered my home, I took a last glance at the faraway horizon and saw Randomira nodding. I could only hope that I wouldn't die if I had accidentally sold my soul to the devil. I would have to warn them first thing tomorrow morning. It had been some very exhausting nights for me. I had been sworn in after the 4th Great Ninja War. The Sage of 6 Paths had given me powers to stop the war, and I did just that. I knew that nobody could match my power and grace with my Tenseigen. I am Hinata Hyuga, the 6th Hokage, and while people would remember me as the frail stuttering girl from 5 years ago, well, I wasn't weak anymore, and I was the 2nd Ice Queen of Konoha. Having the boy you love die by his bitch of a teammate's promise would do that to anyone. I, alongside Konoha, was still recovering as the ghost of the Sage of 6 Paths had sent both the 4th Hokage alongside his wife Kushina, his teacher Jiraiya, and Kakashi to fetch back Naoto. Ah, Naoto, the last precious remnant of my dear Naruto-kun. You will come back home here, where I'll protect you from anyone, as they would die if even a hair on your person was missing. I was expecting their return, but they never did. These 4S rank shinobi had left about 2 months ago, and they still hadn't returned. I knew that whatever happened was that they failed. Oh well, the ghost of the sage along with his sons Ashura and Indra would never resurface again, so all I could do was fix Konoha. But it still raised a question: how could he improve this strongly to match 4S rank shinobi and win against them? No matter, as I didn't have enough intel to make a decision on the matter. I could only hope that the other cages wouldn't throw a shit fit, as they were certain of that result. As I finished her paperwork, somebody came into the room. It was a woman that I knew since her days at the academy. She had long platinum blonde hair which she kept in a ponytail. She had deep blue eyes and wore a curvy purple top with purple battle shorts. This was a friend of her age group. This was Ino Yamanaka, the new official clan heir of the Yamanaka clan. I then began talking to her. This was my new best friend, especially since Sakura was still in the mental ward after her multiple suicide attempts. Sakura was just pathetic. I sure have lost someone I loved, and you don't see me trying to end my life like her. This just proved that people like her shouldn't be a ninja, as they can't do what's expected of them. Oh, hello Ino. What can I do for you? I asked her as she dropped some papers on my desk about the other kings. It was for a Gokage summit, as they probably guessed that the retrieval attempt ended in failure. There was no avoiding this, as I began slowly easing her into the Gokage summit meeting by doing small talk with her. I would explain things to her. I needed my secretary to fill these and call a Jonin meeting. Hey, Hinata, I wanted to drop these and talk if you're not too busy, she said as I nodded, showing her that I wasn't. Not at all, Ino. You seem troubled. Is there anything I can help you with? I asked my bestie, and she nodded before explaining. The head of the hospital wants Sakura to be medically assisted in suicide. No matter what they do, she keep trying to end her life. They claimed it a waste of resources. She explained as tears were forming in her eyes. I knew this hurt her, as Sakura was her first friend and this couldn't go on any longer. Sakura didn't want to be helped, and I had to show the younger generation why being a ninja wasn't a fairy tale. I slowly swallowed and gave Ino the grim news. I see. Tell the hospital that I agree with them. Use the technology to livestream it. The younger generation needs to know that being a ninja isn't about fairy tales. We just barely survived the 4th Great Ninja War, so they need their eyes open to the truth. I then told her to leave as she needed to cry, and ordered my Anbu to spread the word. Go rest, Ino, and I will go to the Gokage summit immediately, I told her as she left before I said my last piece. I guess the remnant of my Naruto-kun will have to be dragged back by force then. Naoto, I will drag you back even if I have to break every bone in your body. I said as my Byakugan changed from its usual white to a light blue flower pattern iris. My body was now enveloped in a purple chakra cloak with 9 black orbs behind my back. I then absorbed back my chakra into my body as I departed to the cage summit. Scene change. Eostia. Celestine's castle. Alicia's pav. You got to be fucking kidding me, right? Are you high, your grace? You are banishing the one who saved us and exposed our rats. All because you are scared of his newfound strength? I screamed as Ruru was forced to hold me down. How dare she? She was banishing the father of my child and Prims. He had done everything for us and was thanking him like this. Even Olga was looking at Celestine with disgust. Chloe shot Celestine a glare alongside Prim, which basically marked her for death later. If only this fucking pint-sized halfling Ruru could unhand me, I could fucking tear that bitch apart for her audacity. I could see Claudia, who had now entered the room and began asking questions. Okay. Why is there such pandemonium in here? Why are you all so hostile towards one another? Claudia asked as Kagaya answered her. I kept struggling only for Ruru to tighten her grip on my arms. Just let me kill her, you wimp already. Celestine wants Naoto-kun to be banished because of his new form because she is afraid. Naoto took the invading force outside, showing he clearly had control, and we are trying to make her see reason, but she isn't willing to at all. Kagaya said as Maya took over. Yeah, and after all that he did for us, he might all well join the enemy because of her paranoia. Put some sense back in our fucking boss Claudia. Maya said. Finally, people were showing that bitch how fucking wrong she was. I could only hope that Claudia wouldn't side with her. Claudia then looked at Celestine before exhaling breaths of anger, it seemed. Claudia began to talk to Celestine. Your Grace, your concerns are noted, however. Sir Naoto's new unique abilities aside has done nothing but help us all. Even with his new abilities, he first ordered us to go inside as he took them outside, showing that he was still thinking clearly about things even in that state. Do I have to take over control of your duties if you are now unfit? Claudia asked sternly as Celestine then apologized before explaining herself. Yes, serves that bitch right fucking so. I mentally cheered as she was apologizing. I am sorry, it's just that his dragon mark came from a demonic source, so I thought that he. Celestine said only for Olga to cut her off. Even if it did, you forgot his testimony in all of this. How can you claim it's dangerous when you don't even bring the involved party in? Olga said. That was true, you didn't even give him a chance to explain himself. Claudia then gave Prim the key to his cell, which Celestine had on herself. As Prim left to free him, Chloe and myself followed suit immediately, as even Kagaya did so. As I hugged him and we slowly reached the throne room, a messenger arrived to warn us of something. The messenger then read the letter out loud. Dear Eoschan, my name is Hinata Hyuga, the 6th Hokage. I would like you to relinquish Naoto Uzumaki as he was born in the village, therefore you have no right to keep him there regardless of his status in your land, as I declared it null and void, effectively immediately. Failure to do so will result in a declaration of war. The messenger said he soon fainted as 4 women leaked killer intent enough to make a bear run away. As I looked at the letter, Celestine gave her orders. Tell them that we chose war. She said as I smiled as Naoto then speak. I agree, as I killed their infiltration units. I cut my ties with them years ago and Eostia is my home. I'll protect Eostia from any harm outside or from it inside. Naoto said as I kissed him on the cheek. I then left him to rest back home as Prim, Chloe, and I had to prepare our troops for war. As we didn't have enough with Volt's horndogs as it is. Land of Iron. 5 days later. Gokage Summit, Hinata's Pav. I arrived at the Land of Iron and waited for the other cages to sit at the table. Gaara followed suit by maid Terumi the Mizukage. Then came I the Reikage, as he was still gruff as ever. Next was the new Tsuchikage, Kuritsuchi. She had succeeded her grandfather since he had died during the war, killing Black Zetsu alongside himself in what he called his last particle style. Once we are sit down, I made my voice. I wasn't in the mood for any games. Eostia wanted one instead of giving back what was mine. So I asked the others what was their plan if the strike team had failed at getting him back. So, I'll cut to the chase. What would you do if I told you they failed? I said to them. The atmosphere became tense as not a single second later the Raikage broke the table with his fist and screamed his questions out loud. What? Do you mean to tell that 4 S-rank ninja and 4 cage-level adversaries including the 4th Hokage who was a battlefield destroyer by himself during the Third War weren't enough? Is this a joke, Hokage? I screamed as I slowly nodded. I grunted and looked away as Gaara made his thoughts known. To think he has improved this much. I am of the opinion that we let him be. He has no intention of harm and the fact that we sent a team to retrieve him makes us look even more guilty in their eyes. Gaara said as Maid took over next. Indeed, and we already have an Otsutsuki killer with the Hokage herself. Should I remind you of how she killed Toneri before he even ripped her sister Byakugan? She smashed the ground so hard that he died by stalagmites to the crotch. He tried to do what he called karma on her, but since she used no chakra well, he failed. So is this young Naoto really necessary? Asked only for Kuritsuchi to counter everyone. While all of this is true, there is still something unaccounted for. Naoto is the only Uzumaki, which means only he can contain the Kyuubi and as such can prevent the Otsutsuki from a massive free advantage. Kuritsuchi, as everyone nodded including me. This was also true and unavoidable. Mifune, the leader of Iron Country, then proposed an alternative. I have an idea. Why don't you all vote on these two choices I will propose? The first is going to war and the second is to hold the countries willing to go to this war with Eostia accountable for all damage done to the other Cage's village. Mifune said as we all nodded. It was a fair compromise as the really stupid ones would be paying our expenses for our dead, so it worked. Mifune then held the voting. All in favor of going to war? He asked as the Raikage, Tsuchikage, and Gaara raised their hands. Damn, Gaara had changed his mind after the Tsuchikage's intel. This wasn't boding well. All for making the warmonger accountable, Mifune asked as all of us including me raised our hands. The meeting had ended with this and I already felt a migraine coming. On one hand, part of me wanted that war and the other was screaming at their idiocy. There was nothing I could do as I signaled to Ino once in my office the war signal. She and I knew that this wouldn't bode well. Especially Eostai, but I kept the latter to myself. Celestine had summoned today and I wasn't feeling like it at all. She locked me up in a dungeon for my newfound power. She literally stabbed my heart open after I opened to her and showed nothing but honesty, and she wanted me to see her. There wasn't much I could do but obey since she was still my boss. I slowly got up and got dressed. Chloe was still asleep along with Alicia and Prim, so I left them a written note to explain where I was. On my way there, Randamira began talking to me telepathically. So are you always this stiff, or is that only when your girls are around? She asked as I yelled at her mentally. I had enough on my plate as it was, so her snarky comment was unwelcomed if welcomed at all. Shut up. I am not in the mood for games and teases. I am trying to not get riled up as I think about how to use my anger productively. I snapped as she laughed before trying to cheer me up. Well, sorry about that, Your Draconic Highness. So what are you thinking about? You haven't been collecting lust energy, and I can't let my new champion become useless and limp like the previous one. She said as I nodded and grunted but answered her. I am trying to curb a horndog rebellion in an upcoming war after I got betrayed by someone who I poured my heart to, so excuse me for not being productive, Your Sluttiness, I said sarcastically as I wasn't in the mood at all. She then nodded as she gave me an idea. You know that I still have ties to Volt, right? Well, I could gather lust energy to revive his dead allies. You know, Beardsley, Grave, Klaus, and the Mortadella brothers, and after that, I'd turn them into human girls. She explained as I slowly stopped to think about it. This was actually a very poetic plan and just karma for these assholes. I then nodded but not completely. I still needed to know what her deal was after all. That is a good plan, but what's the catch at all? Why give me power if your main player, which is Volt, is gonna lose? What's your motive in all of this, Randamira? I asked as she giggled before answering. So we're on a first-name basis now, darling? As for what I want, I did tell you that couples, when they mated, make way more potent lust energy, right? Well, I just want to revive my race. I am the last of demonkind, and if those lovely dark elves can, well, so can I. As for how I do that, well, I do need a body. She explained as I now understood. She wanted a new living body and she needed that for her race to resurface basically. She basically used Volt out of necessity more than cruelty. I then proposed to her a deal before entering Celestine's throne room. So let's say that I give you that, will you still help us afterward or will you run away after that? I asked as she squealed happily before answering. I swear that if you're not pulling my hair, which isn't a bad thing per se, well, I'd ride you publicly until our union is cemented. She said as I almost fell flat on my face but quickly recovered before telling her okay. She nodded happily as I entered Celestine's room. She was already sitting at the table in her gardens as she waited for me to get seated. I sat and we both stayed silent for a couple of minutes. This deafening silence was awkward and not long after that she spoke first. Naoto, I would like to apologize for my paranoia and for throwing you into the dungeon. You gave everything and I threw it all away. I will do anything to get forgiven, even being part of your, she said only for me to cut her off. I wasn't gonna allow her to sell herself to me as it would make no better than Volt. I then explained my reasoning. Celestine, just don't. It is true that I was angry, but while I was in the dungeon my feelings changed from anger to disappointment. Going back to a clean is not possible right now and it would be detrimental for both of us. I understand it, but it is a mental wound that you did to me with this action. Your actions will prove if you mean what you said, but only time will tell. Just don't sell yourself to me as apologies as it would make me, and you know better than Volt. We're at war with my old continent and your actions during that war will prove your words. If you really want a head start, then I'll tell you how I got these powers and how to use them properly. This could turn the tides on Volt's army. I said as nodded with tears flowing out of her eyes. She then asked the how, all while still sobbing. How can I regain your trust? She asked me while still crying, but I nodded to her before explaining. I was busy trying to avoid having a drunk Maya perform slutty actions while she was drunk. I had just got out of Kaguya's lovemaking and earlier today with Olga's, so I didn't need that right now, but before that could happen I had to block a magic fireball and an ice blast coming towards us. I blocked it using my dragon armor as Maya was now losing her drunken stupor as the attacks clearly brought her brain back to reality as I now looked at the attackers. There were 5 people that should be dead, and yet here they were with very familiar cracked skin and red eyes. Was it how zombies were made in my homeland? There in all their glory for revenge on myself were Beardsley, Grave, Klaus, and the Mortadella brothers in zombie form. From that crowd came 5 other people and 2 I recognized. One, in particular, I also killed and was proudly doing it with a smile on my face. It was Sasuke Uchiha, and he was revived like the others, but they revived him of what he would be if he didn't die. Next to him was Kabuto with Orochimaru's skin color like they fused, and I now understood. Kabuto, that blasted asshole, revived all of them, and this was how Volt entered the city. I literally sent a blue distress flare to warn them about this. This blue flare was made and meant that the black dogs were in the city, and it wasn't long before the guards woke up and warned the others. Volt then began talking to me. You piece of shit. You warned them of our plan and we lost so many allies, but against all of us, you don't stand a chance. All of us want you to die for this insult. Now Uzumaki die. Volt screamed as some of them rushed me while Beardsley, Grave, and Klaus tried to go into the castle only for a magical barrier to stop all of them and Grave to yell at Volt as he seemed to know what that barrier would do. Boss, that barrier will shoot an attack to wipe all of our undead souls forever. It also locks us in the town, so we have to win at the cost of possibly dying alongside our ambition. Grave said as Volt grunted before giving his new order. Then focus on killing him. Kill the twin lightning who stole our trophies. Volt screamed as I shot Beardsley away with a dragon lightning blast and took Grave's sword to my chest. It was a good thing that I was a dragon as I took flight with Volt in midair as he latched onto me and I pile-drived him headfirst into the ground. Once that was done I got attacked by Beardsley, Klaus, and Grave as they now stood above and began torturing me with magic spells. I screamed in agony as Sasuke decided to speak before returning the favor from 5 years ago. Allow me to repay you for ruining my vengeance by killing me. He screamed the last part as he plunged his Chidori multiple times into the thoracic cavity. Blood began to splurt out as both Beardsley and Grave began to rip some of my organs out, all while smiling about it. Ah, erg h. I screamed in agony as they kept going. My vision began to get blurry as I noticed the barrier began to change colors. As I slumped into the darkness that seemed to be death, I heard Beardsley and Grave mock me. Once you're dead we will have our way with them, they said as they laughed, and in the darkness of death, I heard a small voice. The voice was accompanied by smaller childlike voices. As my mind began to see a picture of multiple children with different skin colors. They all had something in common. Whiskers mark on each cheek like Naruto and me. The children then turned towards me and I began to feel my heart stop as they said, "We love you, Papa," they said as my heart kicked started again. Blood began to circulate again in my veins along with anger and rage. I slowly got as the winds began to change and the sky turned black and purple lightning began to hit the ground. All of them, including a now healed Volt, were looking at me as I felt my organs and body regenerate. I slowly exhaled before inhaling again. I then looked at them. My fully draconic human form was unleashed. "You will not hurt my beloved treasures. They heal my body and soul. Now you stupid horn dogs," poked the sleeping dragon, and guess what? The dragon is fucking livid and it's open season, bitches. I screamed as I grabbed Kin, his mage, and ripped his head off his shoulders alongside his spinal cord before disintegrating him. All of them began to attack, or the undead tried to, as they got disintegrated forever by the magical spell from earlier. I then looked at Volt before I slowly began torturing him. I then punched him and broke his jaw. After that, I stepped on each of his humeri, thus breaking his arms. Hicks tried to interfere, but I grabbed him by his legs and his head and ripped him in half from the crotch to head barehanded. I then broke Volt's kneecaps as he screamed in agony. Oh gods, this was so fucking satisfying. I kept breaking his body, which slowly began to break his mind. I then remembered Randomira's idea from yesterday. Flashback beginning. Specific plan. You know that I still have ties to Volt, right? I could turn them into human girls. Flashback end. Specific plan. The muscular man attacked as he shrouded himself in lightning and punched me, only for me to bite his head off. This prompted Gaara and the red battle dress lady to attack, and I decided to get rid of the lady as she chose Magma Fist and she chose poorly. So she paid with her life. Gaara then tried to crush the ground with his sand, and I saw more sand than he should have. That motherfucker. He was grinding the pavement and outer building to get more sand out of the minerals in them as I shot a massive lightning blast from my mouth and beheaded him. This wasn't going well for them as I punched the redhead away and broke her neck when my fist collided with her head. Hinata then looked at me before speaking up. "So you have improved, but you won't escape ever again," she said as purple chakra began to shroud her body. Her hair lengthened from back length to below her waist. Her battle blouse slowly opened up, revealing a bit of boob window as 9 black orbs appeared behind her back. My mind immediately knew the answer, as my mother in her undead state had the same powers and she gave them to me before dying again. I rushed Hinata and took her to the sky outside the town, and I would have gone to a ravine with less wildlife, but she slammed something that seemed to be drilling through my inner innards. As we crashed and slowly got up, I saw in her palm a rotating sphere of purple chakra. She hit me with a Rasengan. She not only fulfilled Naruto's dream and learned his technique, but was now trying to get me back to Konoha. Not a chance in hell. She then began talking to me again. "I improved for Naruto's sake and as the last remnant of him. You won't get away. Don't worry, Naoto, you will forget all about them. That is a promise, and I never go back on my word. That's my ninja way," she screamed as she attacked me, and I tried to dodge only for me to get another Rasengan on the back, and I now understood how she did. She also used shadow clones. I grunted as opened my wings, which released a massive gust of wind that destroyed most of her clones, only for her to use a Rasengan that I have never seen before. It was rotating way faster than ever and had 4 pointed blades like a Fuma shuriken. The attack hit me and I couldn't move as my wings began to be shredded and it exploded in a burst of chakra. As I got back up, she seemed to be panting heavily and we both stared at each other. I then talked to her. This was ending right now. I now killed 9 S-rank ninja Hinata. If this isn't enough to show you that I severed my ties to Konoha, then this will. As I said as my wounded dragon began to weave through hand signs. Red and black lightning began to fill my hand as thousands of chirping birds could be heard. Gen Ryuu Chidori. I said as she opened her palm as a weaker and more compressed spiraling sphere of chakra was slowly forming in her hand. Once it was over, she then adjusted her stance to match mine. Take yoke Urasenagn. She said as we both looked at each other in a standoff. This was the first time we could see eye to eye in this battle. This was the final tiebreaker to end them all. After what felt like hours when it was nothing more than a couple of seconds, we charged at each other. I slowly aimed my Chidori at her as she did the same with her Rasengan. We both slammed our techniques at each other and yelled their name at the same time. I had summoned these people for their failures. They had failed greatly in my time of need. 100,000 years ago, I gave Hagamoro Otsutsuki a prophecy that the world would be saved, but the event to allow it to happen had to follow a path and not deviate from it all. The first was that Kaguya's wool Zetsu would make Indra slowly descend into madness, thus leading to the brothers Indra and Ashura transmigrating into newborns. Transmigration worked like karma and as such made it easier to keep them in line. The second was making the Toad Elder dream about prophecy while slowly expanding his lifespan in such a way that his tiny warted brain couldn't handle it and became senile. He would then blab it out to an easily impressionable outcast such as Jiraiya. This would in turn make Jiraiya desperate for the prophecy as the man hated war and would want nothing but peace. The third was of Ashura taking over Naruto's body and thus creating the cycle which would lead to the fourth great ninja war and make it all worthwhile. The fourth was to have Volt succeed in turning Eostia into a country, but something had a snag in my perfect plan. Kushina Uzumaki had given birth to twins. I tried to haunt her dreams and make her stressed to make complications, but the woman was simply too strong mentally and physically affected by it. This caused a snag as it caused Indra's vessel to kill Ashura's and thus prompted things where we were at. I, of course, made a backup plan of using Celestine's divine energy to try to make her banish Naoto, but it also failed. Naoto Uzumaki was a terrifying being to me as he wasn't just a dragon but a Fellborn. Fellbrons are nothing but demon and godslayer who fight for their and others' freedom. They eat and cancel divine order and as such is the only being able to attack the divine like me. I knew he was a Fellborn when even 6-path Tensegan didn't work on him and he wasn't wielding 6 paths himself. That succubus Randamira may think she turned him into that, but that couldn't be further from the truth. I had sent my daughter, an Archangel Gabriel, to kill him inside of Kushina during the 6th month of her pregnancy and it backfired spectacularly. Flashback beginning. Kushina's 6th month of pregnancy, Gabriel's POV. I sneaked into the Namikaze residence and went immediately to the master bedroom. They were both asleep and I decided to try and stab Naoto's fetus as ordered by my mother. I then sensed his fetus and tried to plunge the holy dagger into it only for me to bounce back as it broke my arm. I then shook in fear as this fetus. No, it couldn't be? I then tried again only to get the same result as it broke my other arm. I quickly warped away as I had to report the birth of a Fellborn to my mother Kami. Mother, we have a huge problem. That fetus is a Fellborn. A heresy of a Fellborn. I screamed as my mother broke the arms of the throne she sat on. She then orders something I didn't expect. Then it's time to curse the land of Eostia in infertility. Make that Elthara women disappear so her 2 daughters Olga and Celestine hate each other and wage war right fucking now. Mother screamed at me and my sisters ran to do so. As I left, the land of Eostia would be very different. I could only hope that my mother's plan would not fail. Flashback end. Kushina's 6th month of pregnancy, Kami's POV. I had to take over Celestine and prevent Naoto from destroying her divine power, but as I tried I was rejected. How could that be? As I ranted I saw a woman which I absolutely hated. It was Elthara as she had broken free and was now in front of her daughters briefing them all including Naoto. I then called back my daughters and revived a lot of Naoto's enemies. As my daughters stood before me and I began talking to them. Gabriel, Uriel, Michael, Raphael, I need you all and these scums besides you to kill Naoto Uzumaki. He can't reach the Fellborn state, otherwise all of our plans will fail. The hold that I had only Celestine has vanished, so prepare yourselves. My daughters, you must not fail. If you do, Naoto can forge the Mysterika sword to banish all higher beings' interaction in this world. If you do fail, well, your soul will be used to create our enemy Mysterika sword to banish us all. Now dismiss and go to war, I said while screaming and ordering the latter. I could only hope that all I did would come to bite me in the ass later on. Scene and location change. Naoto's POV. Royal Chambers. I groggily woke up. How many days has it been since my fight with everyone, including me having killed Hinata? As I opened my eyes I saw Chloe, Alicia, Prim, Olga and Kagaya, and surprisingly Claudia next to me. As they all hugged me, Claudia began explaining things to me. Naoto, it had been 12 hours since what happened. As for what is happening, the likes of Volt and these ninjas are back because of the gods themselves. We are going to war against the divine. Tomorrow is an important day as it is the day you become our king. I know you can do it, Naoto. Can you guys leave now? I need to warn him about further details, and Lady Elthara needs help to remove that mana from anyone that Kami can puppeteer against us. Claudia said as they all elf after hugging me. Claudia then took a small breath before she began talking to me. Minato-sensei, please calm down. I know he is going to war with us, but this war, we need to focus on it now. You can't let your personal feelings get in the way. Kami herself asked us to end him as the order of things were destroyed because of him. Kakashi said as Minato still clenched his fist before answering. I know that, Kakashi, but even with all our dead alliance of ninjas from many years ago, even if Hinata barely survived her fight with him by stopping her heart, we have to team up with these rapists and debauched assholes. Not only that, but I discovered Naruto was never himself as this sage of six paths son took over him as a newborn. I still can't shake the feeling that something is gonna go very wrong. I haven't seen Kushina here, and yet Kami said she was still trying to summon her again. Minato said only for Jiraiya to put his 2 Ryos in. She may have joined him since she thinks we're in the wrong here, Jiraiya said as someone confirmed his thoughts for them. Indeed, for an Uzumaki like her or myself, blood family is most important. Tell me, 4th Hokage? When the Kyuubi was ripped out of her, did she ask you to put it back in her? Mito asked Minato as he nodded. She then scowled before answering him. Then she is helping him. You chose to do that to your son when she could have the Kyuubi back in her. If she did, then she would have raised them but died because of your choice. Now she has all the time she needs to review that night over and over and see that you were wrong, 4th Hokage. Your choices have come back to haunt you then. Can you kill your wife and last child, 4th Hokage? Or will you simply let them kill you since you cannot handle things not going your way? Mito said as she left. So did all of them have to prepare for war? This 5th Great Ninja War would be under heaven's destruction. I began walking towards the balcony from the royal hallway as I was dressed in my new royal attire. I had a red cape with the symbol of hope on it. My armor is colored a deep royal blue with golden metal parts on it and joints. This was my king's armor. I still couldn't process that I was becoming the king of Eostia. I never thought or wanted to become that by helping them. This was when I understood what it really meant to be a leader. Being a leader was about being responsible for your people, to protect them from harm at any cost, to guide them in the long term toward a better future. A good leader was one the people look up to and rally as they walk behind him with pride as they relate to their leader's ideals. This was how a ruler was meant to be, and I finally understood. As I was approaching the balcony's door, I was intercepted by a voice I thought I would hear again. To think I'd give birth to such a fine young man. I regret not having fought more against Minato Teme that day. Naoto, you have no idea how proud I am of you. Kushina, no. My mother said to me as I turned and stopped to talk with her. Mom, how can you be actually? I tried to ask, but she answered me anyway to clarify things further. I did die twice, but that Elthara revived me fully without being a zombie. I came to help you and guide you in this war. I have to force answers out of the 3rd Hokage and Jiraiya, she said as I nodded before inquiring about her questions. What questions, Mom? I'm afraid that I don't follow. I said as nodded before explaining. I was sent away to Konoha when I was 8 to become the Kyuubi's 2nd vessel. Eventually, the 2nd Great Ninja War happened and I was kidnapped by what I thought were Kumo ninjas, but as I thought things through, I realized I was wrong. My home village Uzushio was wiped out after the 4th Hokage when he was a genin, and I realized that Kumo and Iwe had no way of getting inside Uzushio. Uzushio is surrounded by 5 massive natural whirlpools, thus why it is named after them. Even if they managed to get through that, they still would have to get inside our wall and our seals, as Fujutsu is our specialty, would have warned them. This meant only that, she explained, but I finished for her. That Konoha sold them away, and after they got. This is how they disabled the seals and outmaneuvered the whirlpools. Konoha had what they wanted, Mom, and it was you. You thinking about the 3rd and Jiraiya because they were the only ones old enough to military plan this. I finished as she nodded before then explaining her final reasons why. So that way I can see if Minato ever truly loved me or he was just an unsuspecting pawn in that plan of theirs. I'll record that fight with a seal and my shadow clones will last a while since I have the yang of Kyuubi in me. I also stole your father Yin of the Kyuubi. This is also how you survived Hinata's Tenseigan battle since she should have wiped the floor and killed you, my son. She explained only for me to try to cut her off, but she smiled when I heard another voice calling to me. So Kit, you're fighting against the gods? I'll help again since I copied Kushina's 6 paths senjutsu when she put my yin half in you when you first met her. The voice said only to reveal in my mind the Kyuubi. He sat there as he then explained his reasoning. God manipulated everyone and I hate, no loathe manipulation with every fiber of my being. I am helping you because my father the sage of 6 paths has lost his way. He advocated understanding by Nishu as if people had chakra they would understand each other more and develop their individuality further, but he betrayed that by siding with the gods. I don't care about that. If someone told you to jump off a bridge I wouldn't cause it's retarded. You're here so that's why I won't help them. I am also working on combining your dragon form with my chakra mode to awaken your fellborn state. Since we're working together right now my name is Kurama. Kyuubi or rather Kurama said now as I nodded and exited what Jinchuriki like myself called their mindscape. Once done my mother nodded as I step onto the balcony as Celestine was waiting with the rest of them. I then kneeled in front of everyone as Celestine began her crowning speech. Dear Sir Naoto, you have prevailed in these dark times. You successfully stopped a 600-year war and exposed the traitors of our rank. You also exposed the conspiracy long made by the gods and that made it a promise to end it all. You did this without ever asking for something in return. You fought, cried, and bled for this land in more ways than anyone ever could have survived. By my supreme authority as the leader of the Holy Alliance and the other Shield Maiden and also your actions against the seeping corruption, you are now the supreme king of Eostia. Celestine said as she put the crown on my head. I could hear the cheers as everyone was raising their fist into the air in agreement. I slowly got up and Celestine handed me a sword. The sword was made of pure diamond which reflected the millions of colors of an infinite rainbow in it. As I took the sword and tied its scabbard to my back Celestine explained the sword's abilities. This is the Mysterica blade. This sword can prevent gods from interfering ever again, making them no different than any mortals like us. The sword can seal them away forever but also act like the gavel of a judge when they inflict a sentence on a guilty party. With this, the future of Eostia is in your hands, my king. Now please give your people a speech before the war of tomorrow. Celestine said as I nodded and sheathed the sword. I then slowly walked to the edge of the royal balcony and took a deep breath. I had to inspire them and after what felt like a good 10 seconds I began my speech to my people. People, today is a glorious day. A 600-year war has been stopped at the cost of starting another. I already hear you ask, how? It started another one already? This is simple. Cammy herself had planned this. She had this perfect little script that made this 600-year war last this long. She planned this land infertility rate to make Volts and his dead conspirators' plan possible. She had this perfect little script for this land and the one where I came from, but she forgot one important thing. Life never goes as planned, and when it does you just get back up and keep walking forward. Unlike the previous ruler who didn't think corruption could seep this low, I won't lie to you all when dark times will be near. I won't lie when I'm forced to impose inhuman taxes on farmers and civilians. If I do this it's because the food from our civilians and farmers feeds our guards protecting you all. If they fall because they don't have the strength and resources to keep fighting then you will all fall. So keep in mind that I will never enjoy these things, and this is why we're declaring war on heaven. For too long they forced people on a path where if they self-reflected they have killed or branded heretics. By reflecting on our actions we can grow as people, as individuals, and improve the generations to come. I won't lie when I say that we will have casualties in this coming war. The reason why I'm this blunt to you all and seem cold is that I care about all of you and I am responsible for you all. You made me king and I am only here today because of your efforts. We will this war because we have something that they lack. We can keep improving while they peaked already. They stagnated because they never reflected one day and asked themselves, hey, what if I did that better with way fewer casualties? They don't think back on how they could have done better, but we do and we will. Now my folks, onward to victory. I said as I raised my fist in the air. The people cheered as they did the same. Everyone began to prepare for this war in the upcoming hours, and it became clear the final battle was near when a crack opened in the sky as people appeared on the ground and began marching towards our castle. I began to walk as everyone began to get ready. My mom made 2 shadow clones as she went with them for Minato, Jiraiya, and Hiruzen. Claudia went for Grave and Klaus. Alicia and Prim went for Beardsley. Olga and Chole went for Kin and the Mortadella brothers. Maya went for Hicks. Kagaya went for Shimuhaza. Celestine went for Hinata. Randamira had finally created her body and went for Volt and the basic mooks. Elthara went to kill the undead. Ruru went for Ashura, Naruto, and Hashirama, body. And I went for the 4 archangels and their mother Kami. This was going to change everything. The fate of the world and everyone in it. I kept rushing as I made 2 Kurama-infused shadow clones. My first priority was to get confirmation about my suspicions. Konoha had betrayed my home. Uzushio and Jiraiya was the first on my list. It wasn't hard to locate him as he was using Toad's and his lion's mane techniques. Having a man with spiky white hair who turned into a lion to bite off his foes wasn't exactly subtle. I then sucker punched him and began asking him my questions. Hello, Jiraiya. You have a lot to answer me for. Tell me, was it you who leaked Uzushio's defenses? Was it you under your dear 3rd Hokage and Sensei's orders who did so? I asked him as he wiped his Edo tense blood from his lower lip. He slowly got back up before answering with a somber look on his face. He looked sad as if he never agreed to that in the first place. As I noticed it, he answered my fears. Hello Kushina. Yes, I did under Sensei's orders. I guess my past finally caught up with me. Not a day has passed since then that I almost puked myself for such an atrocity. Uzushio had helped us build Konoha and we paid them back with a knife in their back. I refused that mission at first, but Sensei blackmailed me. He said that he would ask Orochimaru if I refused and confirmed that Minato was truly my son with Tsunade. He would give my son to Orochimaru and any Uzushio corpses if I refused, so I complied. This was when Tsunade and I broke up since I received PTSD from it and became the pervert that every woman hates nowadays. If you want to kill me, then do so already. These wars are just never ending and I just want to rest since I died. He explained as I nodded, and this made so much more sense now. Jiraiya did it out of either a good man doing it or a psychopath doing so. He never had a choice anyway. I had recorded that in the seal and he then looked at me before asking me a favor. Kushina, I am sick of fighting. I only now discovered that Naruto was possessed since by birth by the son of the Sage of 6 Paths. A prophecy for peace altered by Kami herself, and I keep being summoned as a pawn for bastards like them. Just erased me with your truth-seeking balls as I fake a full fight so they don't suspect anything. He pleaded as I agreed. This was the grandfather of my son and he came up clean about it. He had lost Tsunade in the 4th war and just want to rest in peace, so I charged a Rasengan powered up by the truth-seeking balls. He did the same with a super-massive Rasengan as we clashed or lack thereof. I just curb-stomped him, but he went to his final resting place. Farewell Jiraiya the Gallant. I dispelled myself as a shadow clone to give my original the information she needed. Kushina's second shadow clone Pav. I kept rushing on the battlefield, mowing down foe after foe. It wasn't hard to find where Hiruzen was. The dude had a very unique battle armor and wielded a massive bow staff made of his transformed summon. As I did that, I shot my massive chakra chains which impaled him, but he quickly broke out of them and began weaving through hand signs and breathed a massive mud dragon at me. I quickly dodged and used my chains to pin both of his hands while he weaved through another jutsu to stop him mid-weaving. As I approached him, I slammed my hand on his stomach and sealed off his chakra as I didn't need him calling reinforcements. I then slugged him in the face before cutting straight to the point. Why betray your allies? Why do so when we were nothing but loyal to you? Is the importance of keeping the Kyuubi in your hands that important that you would sell and betray your allies to do so? Or is it fear? Fear of having your ugly nature which could be shown and make you lose your position as the greatest village? I asked him as he gritted his teeth before answering me. His face showed a frown as he now knew Jiraiya spilled the beans. He then angrily responded, "The prowess of your clan was too great to be left alone. If you could simply seal anything away, then you were a battlefield tipper on any side. Fuinjutsu, or the art of sealing, is too dangerous and unpredictable to be allowed to exist. You can store anything, restrain anything, and completely expose everything. The fox had to stay in Konoha and with your clan not happy and openly denouncing us and bringing you back as they were disguised as Kumo ninja would have left us for dead. I couldn't allow that, so I forced Jiraiya to do so by threatening his son Minato. Minato was an easy and naive pawn to get into Hokage when Orochimaru was too corrupt to openly endorse. The fact is that if Minato saw something as a child, then I would have had Danzo wipe his mind so that Orochimaru could be his sensei if Jiraiya hadn't sneaked him away and taken him as an apprentice. Minato falling in love was just a bonus for Konoha and me. He said, and I was now livid as Minato still believed that Naoto was in the wrong, but doubt slowly made his way into me. If Minato still refused to see reason after all this evidence, then I would have to divorce him mid-battle before killing him. I can't blame Minato for trying to see good in everyone, but when the evidence is there, will he admit his wrongs or just follow the way of the Hokage? I then permanently killed Hiruza via my truth-seeking balls as I dissolved myself for the original. She had all the evidence she needed to confront Minato, and this was going to be a game-changer if he didn't. Kushina's real POV. I slowly made my search for Minato with the evidence that I had. I kept myself hidden after I took 2 major players out, but one of them found me. I was suddenly whisked away in a yellow flash. When I landed and got back, Minato was there with his tri-pronged kunai in one of his hands, but he didn't attack. He slowly waited for me to get up before he asked me some questions. Kushina-koi, why did you join him? He asked as I slowly answered him. His face was hopeful, still thinking that I could be reasoned with. Minato, did you know that Konoha sold out Uzushio? Their own allies, only to keep the fox? Did you know that these Kumo ninjas you saved me from were in fact Uzushio ninjas? If you don't believe me, I have seals to show you the conversation with Hiruzen and Jiraiya confirming this. I said as the seals on both of my arms began glowing as Minato was put in a trance to see what I saw. First flashback trance. Jiraiya's beginning. Hello Kushina. Yes, I did under sensei's orders. I guess my past finally caught up with me. Not a day has passed since then that I almost puked myself for such an atrocity. Uzushio had helped us build Konoha and we paid them back with a knife in their back. I refused that mission at first, but sensei blackmailed me. He said that he would ask Orochimaru if I refused and confirmed that Minato was truly my son with Tsunade. He would give my son to Orochimaru and any Uzushio corpses if I refused, so I complied. This was when Tsunade and I broke up since I received PTSD from it and became the pervert that every woman hates nowadays. If you want to kill me, then do so already. These wars are just never ending and I just want to rest since I died. First flashback trance. Jiraiya's end. Second flashback trance. Hiruzen's beginning. The prowess of your clan was too great to be left alone. If you could simply seal anything away, then you were a battlefield tipper on any side. Fuinjutsu, or the art of sealing, is too dangerous and unpredictable to be allowed to exist. You can store anything, restrain anything, and completely expose everything. The fox had to stay in Konoha and with your clan not happy and openly denouncing us and bringing you back as they were disguised as Kumo ninja would have left us for dead. I couldn't allow that, so I forced Jiraiya to do so by threatening his son Minato. Minato was an easy and naive pawn to get into Hokage when Orochimaru was too corrupt to openly endorse. The fact is that if Minato saw something as a child, and I would have had Danzo wipe his mind so that Orochimaru could be his sensei if Jiraiya hadn't sneaked him away and taken him as an apprentice. Minato falling in love was just a bonus for Konoha and me. Second flashback trance. Hiruzen's end. After a couple of seconds of him catching his breath as tears began to form in the corner of his eyes. I slowly waited before I decided that I could wait for him much more. I then gave him an ultimatum. Minato, you now know the truth. Everything was planned by Kami herself, and if even that or the fact that Naruto was possessed since birth by one of the sons of the Sage of Six Paths didn't waver you, then maybe this will. Minato, either you join us or I will divorce you right here right now. Pick your choice fast, I said as I slowly began removing my wedding ring from my ring finger. The fear in his eyes was there, but he slowly got up with a fierce expression and tried to cut my newly alive state dead. So that was the choice he made. To be a Hokage's slave and be his own person after. I slowly crushed the ring to smithereens as I erased him from existence. As he was almost gone, I told him, "It's a damn shame, you know? You have become alive again as we grew old together and saw our grandchildren, but you chose poorly instead. Goodbye, my love. We may have fallen apart a long time ago, but I'll always cherish the good times I had with you. Rest in peace, Minato Namikaze. I said with tears in my eyes as I erased his head and made sure that I was a widow now. I couldn't cry right now. Not when war was still going on. This was what this war was about: self-reflection, growth, individuality, and corruption. This was to make people not afraid to be who they want to be instead of following orders blindly and never asking the right questions. Right now I had to help my daughters-in-law, so I ran to help them. Her Majesty and we were going after these pigs, the Mortadella brothers. They had been revived and they were going to pay. Last time our darling Naoto fought them, and this time we would kill them ourselves. These swine would not know what hit them. As Her Majesty and I kept going, we saw them eating people, including their own dead allies. They are a disgusting bunch, and really this is what we would have raped by, including so many others, had my dear Naoto not interfered. I slowly began to coat my knives in sharpening oil as Her Majesty began enchanting my knives with wind magic. It didn't take long before I cut them to bits as they died. Oh well, Her Majesty and I were done, so we began regrouping, where we all agreed only to see Naoto's mom Kushina already. Damn, she already dispatched her bargain of enemies. Color me impressed as we sat next to her and made girl talk. So the mom-in-law, are you done already? I asked her as she smiled before laughing meekly. It didn't take a genius for me and Her Majesty to figure out things didn't go as planned. I would have asked her, but my queen beat me to it. I assume that your husband didn't agree to a second chance? Olga asked as Kushina nodded before explaining things more in depth. Yeah, it's sad that he wouldn't want to at least consider himself in the wrong here. He could have come back to life and seen our grandchildren grow up, but he chose poorly. Kushina said as Her Majesty and I nodded. I was then stuck with a very mischievous idea. My lips curled into a smirk before I decided to ask something of her. You could join his harem. What a better way to show him and say, fuck you, to his lack of loyalty, for better or for worse. I said as both Her Majesty and her spat out incoherent mumblings while blushing profusely. I only wanted to tease her, but if it went that way, then who was I to object? I pushed Naoto that route and others decided to join, so what was just one more in this case? As I kept trying to hold my laughter, Kushina and Her Majesty then began resuming their duties. We still had troops to commend. Right now the break was over. Kushina went her own as Her Majesty and I kept on ours. Pav change. Claudia's Pav. I made my mowing down troop after troop until I had met the two people that I wanted payback. My adoptive father Grave Levantine and my ex-husband Klaus. I saw the pretty easily, and Klaus, who wasn't a fighter, was taken out pretty easily. It's easy to chop off his head and seal him via the tags Kushina and Kagaya did to store them away until we could punish them all. My adoptive father saw this and became enraged as he tried to swing his massive halberd at me, which I countered by breaking both his kneecaps. He then looked at me, but I spoke to him before he could. Hello, father. How is your lineage? I would care, but well, I don't, since about ever since your plan to rape me and everyone else. How low and pathetic can you and Volt's men get? It takes you guys to become traitors and have thousands of troops just to get laid. Just for your information, I am pregnant with Naoto's child, so just die, you backstabbing, scheming bastard. I said as I cut his head off and sealed him away. I could only hope that Ruru would have gotten rid of Ashura in both Hashirama's and Naruto's bodies. I could only make my way back to the meeting point. Pav change. Ruru's Pav. I had made my way toward the first Hokage. Kushina and Kagaya had made seals for sealing them away, but with the energy of the Mystierica sword, these seals would render Ashura's transmigrant worthless. This meant that the Ashura would be worthless without his full takeover, and then I could just use the last seals from Kushina to just obliterate them with Truth-Seeking Ball, and since he would be sealed, he wouldn't be able to fight back. The seals were on my axe, so when I swung it would hit them and seal them. My first target was in sight and I immediately swung at him, which he blocked with his immense strength. What a fucking dumbass. He just lost already and he fell to the ground as I placed my seals on him and he went up in smoke. I then heard a scream as I turned my head towards it and saw a man in orange and black. He had blonde spiky hair and blue eyes with 3 whiskers mark on his cheeks. That was my darling's twin, but he went up in smoke. I could only guess that with me incinerating Ashura in Hashirama's body, he also lost this body. Oh well, as I made my back to our camp, one saw Kushina, Claudia, Olga, and Chloe leave the camp. Oh, this was just fucking amazing. The enemy lost about 75% of their battlefield sweepers, so it was now officially in our favor. I could only hope that Maya, Kagaya, Alicia, Celestine, Prim, and Randomira would be done soon so we could storm Heaven's Gate. Pav change. Celestine's Pav. I made my way towards the bitch that started a war with us. How dare she? She practically demanded that I hand over the man I loved, and then Cammy tried to make me exile him, so I couldn't wait to fucking skin her. I may look pure and nice on the outside, but I am pretty possessive of those I love. That stuffed bunny that I gave Naoto to convince Olga to side. It was when I fought to keep it from her when we were kids, and that was when we broke it. As I made my way towards her, I decided that since she could heal her own stabbed heart, well, perhaps her head getting shot by a holy arrow would suffice. I slowly took aim and readied an arrow for her head, but I kept holding out on it as I remembered Naoto's information about her clan. Flashback beginning. Hyuga Hinata's weakness. Celestine the First. No, you want Hinata dead, but snipping her blindly her won't work. They can see around them in a circle for miles to come. They have a weakness. They have a blind spot between their cerebral vertebrae and thoracic ones. It will paralyze them, and then you can move in for the kill. Naoto said as I nodded before resuming my archery training. This tip would come in handy, or so I hoped. Flashback end. Hyuga Hinata's weakness. I then took a second to look and access the situation. The wind was calm, so it had no breeze. All I had to worry about was the gravity and distance. I then confirmed my arrows were made of pure light, so I took aim where I remembered their blind spot was. I then let my arrow fly through the battlefield as it made its course toward its target. It connected and made her spew blood, but I couldn't let her heal herself and scream for help, so I quickly aimed and shot another arrow at her head. It connected as I saw the life leave her eyes, so I shot another one. Then another, until I saw certain that no amount of healing magic could repair her brain or save her life. When she was dead, I made my way back to the camp only to see everyone, including Naoto, there. I then asked if everything was okay, to which Claudia confirmed, "Yes, Your Grace, everything is fine. Because half of us finish early, we were able to help the others finish their goals. We have all the traitors and the black dogs sealed away." "What is your order?" she asked, and Naoto made his suggestion. "I know I am king and all now, but I do have an idea. How about we turned them all into women and sent them to take the place of that rape-induced orgy Cammy had originally planned? They even thought of a name for their renamed Eostia country, as they called it, so why shouldn't they be good patriots and feel what they would have forced onto others?" Naoto asked as everyone, including me, nodded as Randomira began to gender bend them via magic. Their screams echoed until Naoto spoke up to the now all-female black dogs. "Pav change. Naoto's Pav. Would you look at that? You guys are now all women. Since you wanted a country, why don't you be good patriots and show the example now?" I said as they screamed and took the place of those they wanted to rape. Inside the portal, we could see them being raped by their non-gender bent counterparts as we smiled at them. Karma was a bitch, and when it does come back, it's in heat. I then closed the portal and with the help of the Mystierica sword destroyed that reality. It was time. As I raised the blade to the sky, a golden staircase appeared as I began climbing it. My troops did the same. This was it. No more endless troops. Cammy was gonna pay as we storm her home and destroy her life. Just like she did ours. Naoto's Pav. I then stormed the gates with my wives. As we kept approaching the room where Cammy was, a feeling of sadness washed over me as I knew my time was at an end. I had people to protect, my unborn child to protect. I stopped midway and then looked at everyone before I began talking. I knew that Celestine and Randomira weren't pregnant yet, and if it was gonna happen, now was a time as good as any. I'll be facing her alone. I know you are all worried, but I'm committed to this. Celestine, Randomira. I haven't had the time to fulfill my promise to you both. So if you want to join the Motherhood Club, now is your chance. But Naoto, you'll come back, right? Celestine asked as I turned my back to them. I didn't want them to see me cry. I slowly breathed in and then out before answering them. I might not, hence why I'm asking this. I don't want any unfulfilled promises to be left unkempt, as I cannot promise that I'll make it out alive. So I ask again. Do you both want to be mothers? I asked after having explained myself. Celestine then nodded along with Randomira. We went away for 2 hours and then came back. I slowly bid my farewell to them. This was heart-wrenching enough as it was. After their departure, I slowly kept walking toward Kami's throne room. There she was sitting there in her golden armor. She had long blonde hair below her waist with emerald-colored eyes. She was dressed in gold-plated armor as she sprouted 3 pairs of wings out of her back. She got up from her throne and decided to talk to me. "You have come a long way. Never before in my entire life have I seen someone destroy my plans as much as you did. Do you have any idea how many problems you caused? Do you have any idea how much you messed with things already in motion? I should have killed your mother instead," she snarled as I then answered her. "And have your perfect plan with Ashura not come true alongside the sin and debauchery you would have forced on Eostia? I don't think so. If you did, you would have destroyed your plan of perfection. For that I thank you, but you will die today, Kami. Even if it's the last thing I do," I said to her as we both clashed in hand-to-hand combat. I punched her and she punched me back, but also swept my legs, which I steeled myself. I then pulled her arm, making her go behind me as I then tripped her. I slowly axe-kicked her spine. She then spat out blood as I used my dragon power to augment the strength in my arms and began ripping her wings one by one. She screamed as I kept tearing her limb from limb. She then calmed her breath before she screamed at me. Why can't I hit you?" she screamed as I kept pummeling her. She slowly began to sob as I kept walking toward her throne. Her eyes widened in fear as I was about to sit on it. Could it be that this throne gave her actual godhood? If so, then breaking it should solve it. I then smashed her throne as she screamed. I could feel a massive explosion of light surging from her. Her life force was getting weaker. I then decided to completely obliterate her throne, and heaven began to dissipate as the godly realm fell apart. I could only estimate about 5 minutes before this place along with everyone in it. I slowly walked towards her and grabbed her by her frontal hair and lifted her so we could both have eye contact. During this stare down, I could see her fear and I decided to lecture her. "You want to know what your big mistake was, dear God Almighty? It's that borrowed power and sense of accomplishment you have. Everyone and every living thing have the potential to second-guess themselves. This leads to improvement, and that throws a wrench in your plans. So you made cults and rules to say that you were the one who gave gifted people this power. You silenced people by killing them when they second-guessed themselves. Even the foresight you gave to people like Celestineheim was nothing but a way for you to control them and the information they had. You weren't thinking of your plan as it was a cover, which hid your fear of mortal kind to notice your fucking bullshit. You are nothing but a scared brat afraid to notice the very people you lied to rebelling against you." I screamed as I began pummeling her to death before I spat on her face and broke her back on my knee. I slowly began flying away as heaven and Kami herself had died. The realm of gods had come to an end. As I landed, my people, including my girls, were waiting for me. I slowly sat on the floor and gave everyone a thumbs up to show the news. The people began to cheer as my wives hugged. My mother had tears in her eyes as I slowly fell asleep out of exhaustion. Mortal kind had reclaimed the ability to think for themselves. 9 years later, Naoto's POV. I was walking on a grassy path when I heard a voice. I then turned my head and saw a blonde-haired boy with blue eyes and golden silky hair. He had 3 whiskers mark on his cheeks like I did, but his ears were like his mom Celestine's. He was dressed in an emerald green tunic with a green Phrygian cap. He had a small sword and a wooden shield on his back. This was my son Link. As I nodded to him, "Hey, Dad, we're hunting, right? I saw some trail that way. Can I take the lead?" he asked me as I nodded before explaining things. "Sure, son, we're hunting deer. Just stay where I can see to intervene in case of danger," I said to my son as he nodded. It took us a good 15 minutes, but we saw a deer. I slowly guided him through his bow motion as he let loose his arrow. A loud cracking noise was heard as the deer's neck was snapped by that arrow. We slowly made sure the deer was dead and I lifted him up on my shoulder as we went back home. This was perfect. Some might say I didn't do much, but this was my life with my 10 children now. I lived a very happy life with my 10 wives. My mother was brought back to life and was spoiling her grandchildren. Eostia was at peace and the nation of peace was born. I could die in my sleep and have no regrets, but I'd wait a couple of decades before that. Until then, a hero who was now lost was now found.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.